I'm Diane Vallere and I write Humorous Mysteries, and my 40th book comes out in 40 days. So I'm going to count down till the release of that book, which is Ranch Dressing, and by going over the 39 books that came before it. So we're starting out today with the book that started my career, which is Designer Dirty Laundry. This is the first book in the Samantha Kidd Killer Fashion Mystery series. It has had different names. I mean, it's always had the same title, but it has had different series names. It has been the Style and Error Mysteries, it has been Style in a Small Town, and now it is Killer Fashion. When I first got the idea for this book, I was working as a buyer, and I must have been having a bad day because the idea of giving it all up to move back home to the town where I grew up in seemed really great. So that's exactly what Samantha does in this book. She is a buyer for a fictional store in New York City, and she, after a bad day, after her parents tell her that they're moving to the West Coast, she helps them move and then gets the idea to buy the house where she grew up, that they have on the market, and move. She gets a new job in a local department store as the trend specialist, but on her first day at the new job, she finds her new boss dead in an elevator, and we're off to the races. This book, it introduces one of my favorite characters who I never knew was going to be one of my favorite characters, and that is Detective Longcar. Voila! I really didn't know how to write a cop. And so I wrote him, and I wrote him as best I could, and I didn't really think much about him. He was kind of a necessary character because it was a mystery, and so she's going to have interaction with the cops. And I still remember it was the summer of 2011, and I went to the California Crime Writers Conference, and I sat in on an interrogation, a two-part interrogation session with Sergeant Derek Pacifico. And he was giving us an illustration of what interrogation techniques were like. And he kind of singled me out just to do a little quick, firing questions at me. And he questioned me about my breakfast. Did you have breakfast? Yes. What did you have for breakfast? Cereal. What kind of cereal did you have? Cheerios. What kind of Cheerios did you have? Honey Nut. And drilled down, and he basically said, when you're doing interrogations, you want to establish a truth baseline with the person who you're interrogating. You want to ask them questions about something that is real, so you know what they look like when they're telling the truth, so that you know what they look like when they're not telling the truth. And that night, I went home. This manuscript had been sitting, I hadn't done anything with it for probably 6 months. I had gotten a rejection from an agent on New Year's Day, which was a heck of a way to start that year. And I was a little disheartened. That night I went home and I thought, there's an interrogation scene in this book and it is not right. And I pulled up the manuscript and I went to that spot and I just rewrote it. And it felt so good to just to acknowledge that scene had been wrong and to just rewrite it. And I was so energized by that I started feeling like I want something to happen with this book. I'm not ready to give up on this book yet. The next month, 4th of July weekend, I was home alone, and I decided to paint my dining room yellow. And while I was painting, I just started thinking about, what if I did it myself? What if I published the book myself? What if maybe I've been hearing about this, and okay. So I started researching it, self-publishing, and I started figuring out what needed to happen, and I had some other friends who were doing the same thing, so we kind of shared intel, and I set a date, which was June of 2012, so that gave me plenty of time to get everything lined up, and I worked on the manuscript, and I hired an editor, and I set up Polyester Press as my publishing company, and I took the manuscript to a local printer and had ARCs printed up, and I mailed them out. And so that book was my first book, and it came out on June 5th of 2012. So that is book 1. Stay tuned for book 2 tomorrow. And in the meantime, that 40th book is Ranch Dressing. It is number 15 in Samantha Kidd's mystery series. And in that book, she goes to a dude ranch. I have a big pre-order giveaway listed. You can find all the details on my author page on Facebook or on my website. And if you pre-order the book, then go ahead and fill out the form and enter to win. There's one grand prize that includes a whole bunch of different things. Okay, Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.